All righty, welcome in to the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Sports Network. I thought that music sounded familiar. I thought I recognized that. Folks, we haven't gone anywhere. We're still here, and we'll be here. We'll be here on a weekly basis, doing the show once a week for the time being. We'll crank it back up to where we were before, hopefully going every day. But for right now, football season winding down and getting ready for baseball season, Cavaliers playoffs, all of that good stuff. We will, obviously be ramping it up a little bit more as we go over the next couple of months. But for these purposes, we still have plenty to talk about. It'll just be for a 1-hour show. Still guests, including Ari Wasserman today. Speaking of a guy who's been very busy, Ari Wasserman and anybody covering college football, it wasn't just, you always think like, oh, hey, the national championship game's over. All right, yeah, we're pretty much kicked my feet. No, not at all. Like you didn't have time to kick your feet up because you had Saban retiring, and I mean, it was just transfer portal, and this one's staying, this one's going. Ohio State is, wait, who's staying? Yeah. All of that. So Ari has been a very, very busy guy, and we're thankful that he'll spend about 15 minutes with us coming up here in just a bit. As I said, plenty to get to as far as the college football scene. The Cavaliers back in action, taking on the Milwaukee Bucks tonight on the road. They continue, and I know they lost the other night to Milwaukee, but they continue to amaze me. And I know some of you don't want to give JB that credit for reasons I don't understand. I know that the playoffs last year, I know it was a gut punch. I know the way they lost was ugly. I get all of that. But at this point, if you are one of those that still is hesitant or has reservations about giving JB Bickerstaff credit and Kobe Altman credit and the team credit, what are the kids? You're a hater. That's all. You're a hater. Because, and it's okay to say, well, hey, yeah, he's doing a nice job. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. That's fine. We'll see what happens when Darius Garland and Evan Mobley return. That's fine. But don't begrudge him and them what they've been able to do with Garland and Mobley out. It's been very impressive. I have been very impressed. But I know some of you, it's like once the pitchfork is out, you can't say, well, you know what, I was wrong. For instance, boom, I'm going to say that I was wrong. Remember when I went after that Steeler fan a while back and I said, what are you talking about, how the Browns might lose Bill Callahan because his son Brian might get a head coaching? Like, I didn't believe that. Then all of a sudden the Titans announced Brian Callahan. I'm like, I was wrong. Steeler fan was right. Congratulations. We can admit, wow, it's okay to say. You actually feel better, I think, if you say, wow, JB's doing a nice job. You don't have to hate on him. So we'll get into the Cavs a little bit later on as well. Maybe a little Pick Six championship weekend edition we'll have. But actually, I want to start right there because I feel a little bit conflicted here, and I shouldn't. I'm hearing a lot of, when we get ready for Kansas City and Baltimore Sunday in the AFC Championship game, I'm hearing a lot of, well, as tired as I might be of Patrick Mahomes, of Tay-Tay, of Travis Kelce, there is no way in hell that I root for the Baltimore Ravens. Folks, I say this, and I don't want it to be a cop-out. Maybe it is a cop-out, but this is the truth coming from me. I really don't care who wins, okay? Like, I don't have a rooting interest. I want to see a good game. I want to see the best team because I want to see a Super Bowl, a good Super Bowl. I think that team is Baltimore, okay? I get it. This doesn't mean that I hate Baltimore any less than I have. I still hate Baltimore. I can't stand. You don't have to go through the history, and I know all about it. But here's what I do this time of the year. At least I find myself doing recently. I tend to root for players. Okay? And believe it or not, I know he wears purple and black. I'm rooting for Lamar Jackson. I've said it for a while now that, except when he plays Cleveland, I like watching the guy play. I think he's matured a lot. I think he's gotten better. His game's gotten better, even if people don't want to give him credit for that. And he's one of those guys in a world where, a lot of guys playing that position aren't really tight-lipped and don't really kind of mind their P's and Q's and all that. That's what Lamar Jackson does. Even the controversy in the offseason when, well, are they going to sign him? How's this going to work out? Okay, we'll figure it out. I mean, it was a business decision, and he knew that he had leverage, and he knew he wanted to get paid. This just in, they all do. But I can tell you, coming up on Sunday for this AFC Championship game, I really don't. If Baltimore wins, fine. And I might actually be leaning toward, you know what, I wouldn't mind seeing Baltimore get in simply because I think I'm rooting for Lamar Jackson. Now, there are some of you out there, I know, that are going to tell me something like, well, your Browns fan card has officially been taken. Gone. So be it. I mean, I doesn't mean I love the Browns any less. Doesn't mean I hate the Ravens any less. Like I said, I'm rooting. I like storylines this time of the year. And I don't dislike Kansas City. I mean, it's over and over and over. But you know what? Give them credit. I've said all season the Taylor Swift stuff doesn't bother me, and like it bothers some people and whatever. This is really about just give me the best team. I think Baltimore is the best team. I don't have a rooting interest per se. But believe it or not, if I'm leaning one way, it's I want to see Lamar Jackson get a Super Bowl ring. I think he's a special player, special talent. I like the way he handles himself. So there, I said it. Now, on the other side of things in the NFC Championship game, and we'll get our picks later on in the show. But I'd love to see Detroit. Again, another great story. Dan Campbell, a lot of guys that you root for, and not that I'm not, I root against San Francisco, but I think the story is a good one. So there, I said it. I think I want Lamar Jackson. I think I want to see him maybe get a Super Bowl ring. It's off my chest. I feel much better. I know the hate's coming my way, but that's okay. More of the Chico Bormann Show to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back, Chico Bormann Show, and there I said it. I feel better. I think there are some folks just going off social media, which is always a bad idea. There are some folks out there that are like hesitant. They feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get lit up on the chat rooms and in the chat rooms and on InstaFace, as Belichick would say. Still looking for a job, by the way, that Bill Belichick. I'm okay saying, Bohm, that I, Chico Bormann, have no problem if Baltimore wins. They win it all. I mean, maybe in 2000, yeah, it was still kind of – I just don't have those feelings. I still don't like them, but I don't have those same feelings. And, again, if they didn't have Lamar, okay, maybe I root for Kansas City. Or I usually don't root for teams when my team's not in it. Just give me a good game. But I will say, I'm rooting for Lamar Jackson. I like Lamar Jackson, everything about him. Should that be grounds for having my Browns fan card taken away?
You know what, Chico? After hearing Hanford Dixon, our colleague on Monday, say that he just roots for the Ravens anytime they're not playing the Browns because of his allegiance with Ozzie Newsome, his former teammate. They're still very close. They talk all the time.
And nobody's going to stand up to Hanford.
I think you put it brilliantly, though, rooting for players, right? Like how I wanted to root for C.J. Stroud, not necessarily to beat the Browns, but I wanted to see him have at least a solid performance to continue that momentum. And I think it's completely understandable. Now, in my case, I'm rooting for Patrick Mahomes because I'm rooting for historical greatness. I want to be witness to something that previous generations haven't seen before. I want to see him top Tom Brady one day. He's not there yet, but I think he's on pace to be.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate where you're coming from, Chico.
Yeah, I just and again, I'll reiterate the CJ thing was like a joke between us, and obviously anybody who follows Ohio State, you don't have to be a Buckeye to really appreciate CJ Stroud. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if they're not playing the Browns, then I just don't like the Steelers. Okay, yeah, the Steelers. There won't, unless we got a case where, like, let's say Mitchell Trubisky got on a heater, right? And I mean, this is actually, unfortunately for the Steelers, hell, who knows what they're, but I mean, let's say Mentor native, Northeast Ohio native, the pride of the Mentor High Cardinals, Mitch Trubisky, they got in the playoffs. He got on a heater, and all of a sudden it was going to bring Northeast Ohio. Then, okay, I might root for that story. Steelers and Ravens, but again, it's more about rooting or looking at players, rooting for storylines. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't know how you wouldn't. Like, I've heard some people say, well, Lamar Jackson's not really a quarterback. He's a running back. First of all, that's so stupid because he's the one that starts the offense. Whether you like him throwing the football or running the football or he has to do, well, I mean, that's up to you, but he's the quarterback. He's not a running back. He's not lined up as the deep back out of an I formation. He's the quarterback, and a damn good one. I just think as much hell as that guy takes, I want to see him get to the top. And then all of a sudden you're talking about he's probably going to win MVP. So 2 NFL MVPs and a Super Bowl win. Now you're talking about, well, okay, he's probably surefire Hall of Famer. Right now, I mean, those things matter. So I don't know. I want to see him dice up, and I think he will dice up Kansas City a little bit.
Despite the fact that he plays for an AFC North foe, I think you've got to respect what Lamar Jackson has done. And like even last week in their halftime speech, Lamar Jackson, they were asking him in his post-game press conference after following that matchup against Houston, like he admitted that he was the one that addressed the locker room at halftime. He pounded his chest and said it was me, and he addressed the team. And like that's inspiring. That's something that you can't help but respect. This is a true leader.
And that's usually not him.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody's always doubted him from his days at Louisville and, this guy, he can run, but he's going to have, remember all those idiots, he's going to have to change positions. Like, come on. I mean, that's just dumb. Going to have to change positions.
Might be Bill Polian's worst take of all time.
Oh, he said he wasn't the only one, though.
No, he wasn't.
There were some more in quieter spaces that were saying that, but yeah, he wasn't the only one. So yeah, there's that's my take on this game coming up, and I feel better. I think a lot of people are, well, if you're a Browns fan, you absolutely positively cannot root for the Ravens. Sorry. If the Chiefs win, I'll be fine with that. I think ultimately, Baltimore's defense, not to get too far into the weeds because we got pick 6 coming up, but I think Baltimore's defense is going to be. I'm not buying in all the way to Kansas City has that offense solved. I know it's Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I get it, but I'm not buying in all the way. The other thing that I want to get to quickly is we mentioned. We know about all the coaching carousel going on right now. Jim Harbaugh, which we're going to touch on here in a little bit with Ari Wasserman of the Athletic, him getting hired by the Chargers, which to me wasn't a big surprise at all. Have we noticed that Bill Belichick is wow? So you got Harbaugh going to the Chargers, Antonio Pierce to the Raiders, Gerard Mayo to the Patriots, Brian Callahan, Steeler fan, you were right. I was wrong. Sorry. To the Titans. Dave Canales, who I don't think anybody's ever heard of before going to the Panthers. David Tepper likes it that way, by the way. And then the Seahawks and Commanders are still searching. Here's what I would say. I think it kind of speaks to what I was saying a while ago with Belichick. And it's not that – this is not to say like, oh, the game's passed him by. That's stupid. I mean, of course – but the way he goes about his business and the way, not only is he coming in to coach the team, but then the general manager, front office is involved. How does that all play out? To me, the only way that I thought Belichick was going to get hired, and maybe this is crazy to say, is that if the Cowboys or the Eagles moved on. If the Cowboys moved on from Mike McCarthy, okay, that makes sense. Because I don't think you're looking necessarily, Jerry Jones isn't, by the way. He doesn't even know how much longer he's going to be around. So he might say, hey, if we hire Bill Belichick, he wins the Super Bowl in the next 2 years, I got what I wanted. Same thing with Philadelphia, kind of ready-made. And I think teams, if you think about this, and it's not a knock on Belichick, it's really not. It's just reality. If you've got an overhaul that needs to take place, I don't know if Bill Belichick is the guy to make that happen for you. To me, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yes, I know what he can do, and no, I don't think the game's passed him by. But he's not for every situation, even with that incredible resume. Back with more of the Chico Bormann Show in just a moment, right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, a very, very busy week, 2 week. Heck, there really hasn't been an off season. Like, I think some people, like, for instance, the NFL, Super Bowl is coming soon after the Super Bowl. Okay, yeah, you got the draft and things happening. Like, if you think the college football season ended when the national championship game ended, think again. Ari Wasserman is our guest, one of the best in the business covering college football for The Athletic. Also, the podcast is a damn good one until Saturday, and Ari joins us right now. Let me just say, with everything going on, I listened to the podcast. The fact that you were able to squeeze in a Tina Turner musical, very impressive, Ari. Very impressive.
Well, I was so funny because I was at this Tina Turner musical that my wife's mom was so excited to take us to. And 30 minutes before we were walking out the door, Jim Harbaugh takes the Chargers job. And when we were there, we were a little bit late for obvious reasons. And I just told my wife, I said, listen, we used to think that the national title game was, once that was over, we could spend some time together. And I think we need to get to mid-February now before things calm down a little bit. And it's true. It's like, I feel like this month has been just as busy as the previous month, and it's the craziest month on the calendar. With Nick Saban retiring, this happened as we were packing to go on a small trip to Santa Barbara for the weekend. Like, I just don't, I can't plan things in January anymore, but I love it. And I'm happy to talk about it.
Let me ask you quickly about Saban, and then we'll get into Harbaugh. Was there any inkling from you, anybody you talked to, that this was going down, or did it surprise all of you guys?
I was surprised. I don't know if everybody was surprised, because like, I look at it in a way that they brought in 9 5-star prospects the year before, and they did a really good job. At least I think they did a really good job of overcoming some of their roster limitations this year to make it as far as they did. And it seemed to me that Alabama was ramping up to win a national title next year, the year after it. And I thought that, in my opinion, he would have gone through at least that class that had the 9 5-stars in it, like cycle through those kids and then maybe start to think about it. But like, we all look at Nick Saban, and I'm sure you probably do too, of just like, even though he was 72 years old, we didn't view him as mortal. Like, I didn't view him as somebody who was getting older. He didn't look like he was old. He was very energetic. And, you never know what it's like when the cameras are off and someone goes to bed at night. But I just viewed Nick Saban as a constant figure in the sport that I grew up watching. Like, I haven't been in this profession without him. And the sport is changing dramatically. the last 2 years, probably more so than the previous 50 combined. And he was like the steadying force of that. And the fact that he's leaving now is a change to the sport that was frankly surprising and sad and uncomfortable for me.
Was there one more thing on Saban?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, Ari, that there was a way? Because look, when he decides to step down and he steps down, it's huge news, and there's that trickle down effect. Do you think that, like, if he, let's say, midway through the year, he had announced that, would we have seen a lot of what we have seen over the last few weeks? I mean, Ohio State getting these guys, and the vultures doing their thing, trying to get those players, or was it really, hey, when Nick was going to do it, this was going to be the reaction to it?
You mean like in terms of like Alabama's roster retention?
Yeah.
Like I actually think, because like I heard, or I think I saw that he said that it was getting increasingly harder to tell people when they asked him that, in recruiting, if he was going to be there for 4 more years. To answer the question, yes. And I thought to myself, well, Nick, no matter what you do or when you do it, you're going to be letting down somebody. Like there's no way to leave Alabama and what you built without not being there long enough for somebody. Like, I mean, they just signed a recruiting class 2 weeks or a week before he left. So, you're seeing like Julian Sayin, the 5-star quarterback that's now at Ohio State. He wanted to go to Alabama to play for Nick Saban, and he was signed for what, 3 weeks before it ended. So, I guess if he would have announced he was retiring in June, and he would have said, I'm doing the season this year, that would have given people ample time to make their decisions based on the upcoming class signing in December, while also giving his team a chance to go out one more time and do it. But like, the thing that's so funny to me about, sports, and we've seen farewell tours before, like Nick Saban has never concerned himself with stuff like that.
Yep.
And I think that's what made him so great. Like, he was always, what am I doing today to win? What am I doing today to advance the goals of our program? And he never struck me as somebody who would want to go on a tour, every stadium that he goes to honoring him, or everybody talking about it for 6 months. I think the way that he did it was very appropriate. And certainly there's going to be, some roster turnover when it comes to that. But, Alabama's new coach is getting paid a lot of money, and Alabama's got a lot of money, and it's a business, and they just need to hire a new CEO. I think they've done that. And it's not Nick Saban's job or worry to wonder if somebody might transfer out. Like, the guy's been there for a long time and won a lot of championships, and I'm happy he's able to go out on his own terms.
Ari Wasserman joining us, talking college football from The Athletic. Also check out the podcast Until Saturday. Okay, I guess with Jim Harbaugh and the announcement, as you mentioned earlier, him going to the Chargers, for me, and I'm curious about you and maybe a lot of folks out there, it didn't really feel like if, just rather when. Like, it felt like he always kind of had one foot out the door. What did you think?
Well, I mean, that man was like 6 or 7 yards away from winning a Super Bowl once.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you get to that point in your career and you can taste it and you lose to your brother, that would hang with you forever. So I understand the desire to go back to the NFL. And this isn't just, you'll read on the internet that people are like, hey, he's running away from the NCAA. It's like, anybody who's paid even half of close attention to Jim Harbaugh and his behavior the last 2 years knew that this was a desire for him. And now he's going to a place in California that, he's familiar with and has a quarterback, and they actually could do it again. Like, I think that to me is the biggest thing. And, I don't know who was surprised by it. I was kind of surprised by the storylines that were coming out earlier in the week about what did Michigan mess up, or what could they have done to keep him, and all that stuff. And it's like, I don't think the answer is they could have done anything. And, when a person wins a national championship the way that he did, at a place that is admittedly probably going to be a hard place to sustain it, his life goal is to win a Super Bowl, and to check that off his list. They checked the national championship off. He brought Michigan back to a place that it hadn't been for 2 decades, even longer. And the rivalry is restored, and now he can go chase what else he has to do. I think he's a person like everybody else who has career goals and aspirations, and good for him for chasing it.
Yeah, you mentioned Michigan's reaction. We're gonna pick up with that when we come back here, because I think what you said, I think you nailed it, and I think in large part, when we see these things happen, it's, oh my gosh, there's got to be some, bad blood there. But it really, I didn't feel was the case. We'll touch on more of that and much, much more. Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State fans, they're giving it to Ari. Imagine that. Sometimes you tell it like it is, you're going to face some heat, and he knows that. We'll be back with Ari Wasserman and more of the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network. And welcome back once again, the Chico Bormann Show here in the Big Play Sports Network. And as I said, talking college football, one of the best in the business. He is Ari Wasserman with The Athletic. Check out the podcast. It is a very good one until Saturday. And before the break, Ari, you mentioned about Michigan and Harbaugh and, okay, the breakup. I guess I don't look at it as a typical breakup, like bad blood. Like, I'm sure there's some people, man, you know what? We thought we could have kept him. And ultimately, you mentioned it. The carrot was always getting back to the NFL and taking care of the unfinished business. Was there really any amount of money or, some of the language in the contract about, well, he can't be fired for X, Y, and Z? Can you explain some of that? And do you think
I think that it's all semantics and people leaking information going into the end of the tenure there to try to make themselves look good. The thing that I find most funny about this is that if you take yourself back 9 years ago to when Jim Harbaugh was hired and where Ohio State was at that time and the promise of what his career was supposed to be there, I don't even know if national championship was part of the equation there. I think it was just build a program that is proud, plays hard, and can beat Ohio State every now and then. Because they weren't beating Ohio State at all for the previous, 15, 20 years before he got there. More like 15. But that wasn't part of the calculus. I don't know that I especially took Michigan seriously at any point, even in the last 2 or 3 years of them actually winning the national championship. So to me, when you look at the coaching hires that happened in college football, man, and you see like Scott Frost at Nebraska and Tom Herman at Texas and Jimbo Fisher at A&M, there are a lot of savior type like hires where the expectations are put on somebody to restore greatness at a place that's down. And I think Jim Harbaugh not only is one of the few coaches, maybe since Urban Meyer did it at Ohio State, they weren't really down, but they had their issues. He not only met those, the hype machine, but he exceeded it. So, to win a national championship and to beat Ohio State 3 years in a row is literally all anybody at Michigan could have asked for. And I bring this up because you said bad blood. It's like if you would have looked any Michigan person in the eye, fan, administrator, anybody before the year and said, hey, you're going to win the national title this year, but you're going to lose your coach. Do 100% of the people take that deal? I think so. And I think that most Michigan fans that I've interacted with understand the score, how the game works, and are grateful for getting that memory, because there's a lot of people out there that'll never have a memory like that. And to me, if I were a Michigan fan, I would be more grateful than angry, dismissive, or mad.
And Ari, what makes this even crazier when you think about it, and you went through the 9-year period, I think a lot of folks out there in college football thought he might be on his way out. Like, maybe it's
after 2020.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he was gone after that.
The thing that's so funny about Jim Harbaugh's tenure is that you literally got, if you're a fan of Michigan, every single range of emotion possible when it comes to a roller coaster ride of being a college football fan. It starts off with him coming out guns hot on Twitter, talking crap to other coaches. He's climbing trees. He's playing flag football with the shirt off. He's sleeping over at recruits' house. It's bizarre. They become a foot close or a foot away from beating Ohio State, making the playoff, I believe, in year 2 or 3 of his tenure. Then things get really bad. They don't recruit really at a high level, and they can't find a quarterback when he was supposed to be the Andrew Luck quarterback whisperer. And then 2020 happens, and everyone's watching the COVID games. And I remember there was a Wisconsin game they played, and I don't remember the score, but they played Wisconsin, and I think they got their doors blown off. And it looked to me on TV as if his team had completely given up on him. And usually coaches get fired when you get that sense of that team is not playing for the coach. They're not playing hard. It's a weird year, and everybody tapped out. which may have at the time been understandable. He gets a salary slashed instead of getting fired, which is a bizarre but like I think brilliant move, and kudos to Jim Harbaugh for accepting that. Most coaches wouldn't have. And then you see this trajectory of steady growth that culminates in a national championship 3 years later. It's like if you were a fan of Michigan, you got to feel every feeling that this entertainment product can ask for. And nobody likes the bad times, but I think the bad times make the good times better.
All right, anybody who follows college football, anybody who reads you, has read you, or listens to you on podcasts are well aware stars matter, and you wrote a great column, I thought, after the national championship where you said kind of the death of the super team. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you were paying attention to recruiting rankings, and some people get really into it and some people don't care at all, but, during the 2019, 20, 21 classes, high school recruiting classes, you had a group of teams, 3, 4, 5, that were signing more than half of the top 100 players in the country. Like you had the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias, who were, hoarding all the 5 stars and all of the truly elite talents that come out of the high school ranks. And as a result of that, you were seeing super teams. And I think in 2020 and 2021, some of those, that Joe Burrow LSU team, like those teams were so stacked with talent that the teams that they were playing couldn't physically keep up. It wasn't even like the same sport. And my mind was programmed, because those recruiting trends have continued, to think that teams that were built like Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia are the only ones that are equipped to win a national championship in the playoff era, because, upsets happen and teams win one game. It's really hard for a team to beat Ohio State, Iowa, Alabama, Washington all in a row. And Michigan did that. And I think that this is an interesting intersection in the sport, because I can't tell if what Michigan did this year was a truly remarkable evaluation job done by a coach who was brilliant in identifying talent, plugging pieces in the portal and, having just enough top tier talent to win those games, or if the vast number of departures that we see from these super rosters is bringing the top down more so it's more accessible to the middle tier. Because even if Washington would have won the national title, that would have been the least talented team on paper to win a national championship in the playoff era. So was this year a one-off, or was this year the beginning of a new trend where instead of 4 or 5 teams being able to win a national title going into a year, that list is more from 15 to 20? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if the portal is going to calm down or get worse. I don't know if NIL is going to continue to allow some of the 5-star prospects that would have gone to certain places to go elsewhere moving forward, thus bringing the middle tier up and the lower or the higher tier down. But the one thing that I did learn for sure in Michigan is the reason for that is that you can't be as definitive and as sure of things, like saying it's impossible the way that I did, because I would have told you before the year was impossible, and clearly it's not.
So last thing I want to bring up, and we appreciate your time as always, Ari Wasserman.
I know what this is now. Come on, just lay it on me, man. Okay. I know.
Well, it's actually, what's funny about this is, and
you're classy for keeping it to the end, though. I'll give you that. You're classy.
But see, okay, people are going to think, you might even think, oh, you know what, you're just sucking up because if I disagree with you on something, I know you well enough.
That's what sports is.
So I was at Ohio State in the 90s. Right? Mid-90s. So, I mean, great teams, great rosters. Coop just couldn't beat Michigan. And then, obviously the Rich Rod era, and it was Ohio State over Michigan, and it was like not even close. They were blowouts, not even fun to watch. And I kind of felt a little bit conflicted, but I think you feel the same way I do. Like, it's still... Yeah, I want Ohio State to beat Michigan, but I want the rivalry to be back. And when Michigan wins, and they were the best team in college football today, I don't like Jim Harbaugh, but damn it, the guy can coach, and he did everything he's done from the NFL, Stanford, at Michigan, brought him a national title. Give him credit. Now, along the way, did they do some things that, well, we'll find out to what degree, but people have been telling you, because you basically told Ohio State fans it's not a good look, and you're dead on with this, it's not a good look when somebody says, well, Michigan won the national championship, to say, well, they cheated. That's the only reason they won the national championship. So yeah. I know you're getting hate. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, I think that the reason why is because people hate their rival, and it's got to be painful for an Ohio State fan to watch your team recede from what the normal expectations were for Ohio State. And not only that, coinciding with the rise of your most bitter rival that you could always, no matter how bad things got, say Michigan stinks, you don't win anything, blah, blah, blah. You can't do it anymore. And my whole thing is that, yes, they did. I don't know. They cheated. They attempted to cheat. We don't know the impact that whatever they were doing had on the actual result. But if you are an Ohio State fan who is like in the corner, stomping their feet, saying they cheated, it just seems like the wrong look to me. Like, you root for one of the greatest college football programs in the history of the sport, a place that has a lot of pride and a place that expects to win and win big. My focus, if I were an Ohio State fan, wouldn't be Connor Stallions, or that they, cheated to beat Rutgers, or whatever you want to say, or whatever. Most of the stuff people say isn't even true. The stuff that I read on Twitter, it's like, do you even follow the sport? Is to pour into your team. They just had one of the best off seasons that you could have ever imagined. They have a first round pick coming in at safety. They've got a bunch of help in the quarterback room now. They got a luxury piece in Quinshon Judkins at running back. They've got another piece on the offensive line that's coming in. Like, Ohio State is positioned very well to reclaim what they think is theirs, which is to own this rivalry and to win national titles. And when your opponent wins and you take your ball and go home, it's just not a good look for it makes it feel like you're not a champion, or that you've never been a champion before. Support your team by supporting your team. And of course, there's always the underlying comments that rivals make to each other, back and forth, to try to make the other one feel bad. And if that's what you're doing, then do it. But like, I think that the bigger issue here isn't so much Michigan's success. If you're an Ohio State fan, it's Ohio State's regression. And how do we get that off? How do we get that back? Because, like it or not, Michigan beat Ohio State 3 times in a row. You might say that Michigan's roster is better now because they cheated 3 years ago or whatever, but Ohio State did not lose to Michigan this year because Michigan cheated them out of it. They lost to Michigan because Michigan beat them. And the rest of the teams on their schedule, the only ones that could have physically beaten them, no matter whether they were cheating or not, came after the scandal broke, which were Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa, because it was the Big Ten championship game, Alabama, and Washington. And if you watch the games, they were very, very good. They earned it on the field. I don't know how much the Connor Stallion stuff played into it. And if it comes back into the future when NCAA comes out and gives us more information that makes this more drastic or more severe than I think it is, then we'll reassess at that time. But right now, you lost. And in sports, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And the team that you hate the most won the championship. And that should fuel you to go try to get it back. Not screaming and pouting and yelling on Twitter about cheating and all. It's just a bad look to me. Show some pride in your team. Show some pride in who you are and what you grew up rooting for. And show some confidence that, the deficiencies of the team that you root for are going to be fixed and you're going to reclaim greatness. Don't pout. That's my whole thing.
Yep. Sometimes the truth hurts. All right. We'll leave on a lighter note, much lighter note. When Bill Landis was here, we had him. He was staying at your place for the Cowboys.
My guy.
Yeah. Oh, we love Bill Landis. Have him every week during the season. Just fantastic guy. You're right. But I asked him at the end when he told me he was staying at your place. I'm like, you and Ari go back a ways. You've been buddies for a while and whatever. I said, so. Is the relationship, are you comfortable enough with Ari, like in the kitchen? If you walked over to the refrigerator, grabbed the gallon of milk and took a swig out of it, are you comfortable enough not only doing it, but would Ari just kind of be like, no big deal? Or would there be, so what would be your
What
answer?
did he say?
I think he dodged it, and I think he said, if I would do that, but he said something about you being busy with, the kid and work that, I would do it behind his back. And that's not what I wanted.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the thing you have to know about me and Landis is that we have spent an inordinate amount of time together. Back when we worked together, we used to travel to all the games together. And, when at that point in my life, when I lived in Ohio and I moved from Arizona, I didn't have a ton of friends, and he moved from Pennsylvania. He didn't have a ton of friends, so we hung out socially too. So like if Landis were in my house and he were to take a swig of milk out of the milk jug, I probably wouldn't care like 3 years ago because whatever. The only thing I would think now is like about the kid, and even then I probably wouldn't care. So he is in my home. It's his home. He can go in and grab the food out of the cupboard, and we've shared a lot of food and dinners, and I love the guy to death. And his podcast with Doug Lesmerises is doing really, really well too, the Kings of the North show, and I'm really happy to see them all being very successful. And I don't want people to take my viewpoints, buddy, as like Ohio State hate. I think that it's more Ohio State respect in the sense that they're better than that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. And I know a lot of people are yelling at me about excusing cheating and, making it seem like there's no consequences. The fact of the matter is if Michigan cheated, and we have concrete proof that comes out here in the next few months about who cheated, how they cheated, and the effects that it had, I think they should be punished to the full extent that they're able to be punished, because there is crime, there is punishment, there is cheating, there's consequences. But in the time being, be an Ohio State fan and support your team. Don't waste all your energy trying to scream at the other people.
Speaking of Ohio State fans, you can check out Ari. You just had Doug Lesmerises on from that Kings of the North.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Yep, great podcast whenever you guys get together. Until Saturday is the podcast, and of course, you follow him with The Athletic. Buddy, always a pleasure to be able to catch up with you. Keep up the great work, and hopefully you could spend a little bit of time with that family. And
yes, I hope so. I really, really, really hope so. But I appreciate you having me on. You're one of the first people that ever had me on a radio show, and I'm loyal to you for that. So anytime you need me, you give me a call, okay?
You're the best, Ari. Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, keep up the good work. Again, Ari Wasserman from The Athletic. And again, check out that podcast Until Saturday. That's where I found out about the Bohm. You wouldn't have guessed Ari would now granted, mother-in-law had a lot to do with that, the Tina Turner musical, but he was still there. He can still claim like, hey, I was there. We don't have to know the reason for it. So good for him. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to touch on, just kind of put a cherry on the sundae on top of what he was saying regarding Ohio State. Because, again, I say this, and I kind of get the same heat he does. Boom. And you can at least vouch for me that I've said certain things about the rivalry and that I'm glad it's back. And it's okay. It's kind of like saying for the AFC Championship game, it's okay to say I really want to see Lamar Jackson do well. It's also okay to say, hey, you know what? I like it when it's more of a rivalry, right? We'll talk more about that when we come back. It's Chico Bormann Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Bormann Show as we wind things down. You know what? I had Ari's answer pegged. I knew he was going to say 3 years ago, Landis drinks out of the milk carton in my refrigerator, no big deal, but now I got a kid. So, but man, good stuff. Great stuff from Ari. And, I understand, Bohm. I mean, and I think maybe some of it is age. I always joke about, well, I'm getting older, but I think some of it is like when Ohio State fans like, no, you either beat Michigan or you're fired, or you got to be somewhat realistic. Like, yeah, the cheating, we're not done with that, by the way. But I think to Ari's point, and I agree with him, did Michigan beat Ohio State on November 25th of last year because they cheated? I don't think so. They were just the better team. They were tougher. They made plays when they had to. That was that. So, anyway, good stuff from Ari. All right, it's time. We've got pick six. We're down to the AFC NFC Championship game. Boom. The AFC. We're not even going to do we do spreads? Do we just go straight up?
Why don't we go straight up, Chico?
All right, let's go straight up. We'll go with the first game, Kansas City at Baltimore. I like the Ravens in this. I like the Ravens by about 10. I think Patrick Mahomes and that offense going to have some problems with the Ravens D, and I think Lamar Jackson does, well, what Lamar Jackson usually does.
Chico, I'm picking with the heart today for this edition of Pick Six. I'm going with the Chiefs. Playoff Patty rises to the occasion. 2 more TDs for Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift going wild, baby.
You just want to see more Tay-Tay. That's okay.
Oops.
So much so he wanted the mic drop on that one. Okay, so Bohm has KC. I've got Baltimore. Now we go to the NFC Championship game. The Lions. This is my upset. I think Deebo Samuel. I don't think he's going to play much. Jared Goff has proven me wrong. So if Jared Goff can do it again and just not, I don't think San Fran's defense is playing out of their minds or like they were early. I think Detroit's going to get it done. I think we've got a Ravens-Lions Super Bowl coming up.
Again, Chico, I'm picking with the heart. I'm going with the Lions. I want to see the Cinderella story come true. Now, when it comes to picking the Super Bowl, I'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I'm going to pick the Lions here in this one as well.
Bohm's a fan of biting kneecaps and Taylor Swift.
You're damn right.
It all makes sense. All right, good stuff on this edition of the Chico Bormann Show. Again, thanks to our buddy Ari Wasserman. Producer Michael Bohm did a great job as well. We'll be back with you again next week. Plenty more to cover, including these AFC, NFC title games and Cavs who are taking on the Bucks and obviously playing some great basketball in case you haven't noticed. We'll be talking more about that. It's the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network.